The courtroom smelled like polished wood and quiet judgment. Emily Carter sat on a hard bench, her small legs swinging above the floor, unable to touch it. She was 9 years old, clutching a stuffed rabbit whose fur had worn thin from nervous hands. Across the room stood her father, Daniel Carter, a mechanic with oil-stained fingers and tired eyes that softened every time they met hers. He smiled at her, not a scared smile, not an angry one, a promise. Everything will be okay. Emily believed him because fathers didn't lie. The prosecutor spoke for what felt like hours, words too heavy for a child to understand. Embezzlement, fraud, stolen funds. Numbers floated through the air like accusations carved from stone. Daniel had worked 22 years at Halbrook Construction. Everyone knew him as the man who fixed things, engines, broken locks, sometimes even people's bad days. But now he stood accused of stealing millions. Emily didn't understand money. She only understood the way her mother cried at night. The defense attorney barely spoke. Papers shuffled, voices echoed. And then Judge Robert Whitaker leaned forward, his face stern, detached. A man who had done this thousands of times. "Mr. Carter," he said, "the evidence leaves this court with no reasonable doubt." Emily felt her mother's hand tighten painfully around hers. "I sentence you to 25 years in state prison." The gavel struck. The sound shattered something permanent. Her father turned only once before officers led him away. His eyes searched for her, desperate now, and she saw fear for the first time. Not fear for himself, for her. Life after that became smaller. Neighbors stopped waving, friends disappeared. At school, whispers followed Emily like shadows. Daughter of a thief. Her mother worked double shifts at a diner until exhaustion hollowed her face. Bills stacked, silence filled the house where laughter once lived. Emily visited her father every month. Behind glass, he always asked about school, never about himself. "I didn't do it, Em," he told her once, voice barely above a whisper. "One day, you'll understand." She nodded, though she didn't. But she believed him, because fathers didn't lie. When Emily was 15, her mother collapsed from a stroke behind the diner counter. Stress, doctor said. Too much weight for one life. The funeral was small, quiet, final. Afterward, Emily sat alone in their empty house, surrounded by unpaid notices and fading memories. Rage didn't come loudly. It arrived slowly, cold, patient, settling deep inside her bones. That night, she opened her father's old case file. Thousands of pages, financial statements, witness testimonies, corporate audits. She didn't understand most of it, but she began reading anyway. Every night, every weekend. While other teenagers chased parties and freedom, Emily studied law textbooks borrowed from libraries. She learned words like precedent, burden of proof, prosecutorial misconduct, and something began to bother her. One witness statement changed between drafts. One signature didn't match. One financial transfer appeared twice under different accounts. Tiny cracks, invisible to everyone else, but not to her. Years passed. Emily Carter became quiet strength wrapped in discipline. Scholarships carried her through college. Law school nearly broke her, but pain had trained her endurance long ago. She never dated seriously, never wasted time. Every achievement had one destination: the truth. The day she passed the bar exam, she visited her father. He looked older than time itself. Gray hair, bent shoulders, eyes still kind. "You did it," he said, proudly. She pressed her hand against the glass. "I'm going to fix this," she told him. For the first time, he looked afraid. "Emily, let it go." She shook her head slowly. I can't, because she had waited too long. At 32, attorney Emily Carter filed a motion to reopen State versus Daniel Carter. The legal world barely noticed until the presiding judge assignment appeared. Judge Robert Whitaker, the same man, 18 years older, slower, human now. Emily stared at the meme for a long time. Fate didn't feel accidental. It felt patient. The first hearing was quiet. Whitaker entered the courtroom and paused when he saw her nameplate. Recognition flickered faintly. "You're related to the defendant?" "My father," Emily replied calmly. A long silence followed. Something like discomfort crossed his face. "Proceed, counselor." Her voice never shook as she dismantled the original evidence piece by piece. Forged transfers, manipulated audits, witnesses pressured into testimony. The courtroom listened. For the first time, doubt entered the record. And as she spoke, Emily realized something terrifying. She didn't just want justice anymore. She wanted him, the judge who never looked twice, to feel what her family felt. Loss, regret, helplessness. The thought frightened her, but she didn't stop. 2 weeks later, Whitaker requested a private meeting. His office felt smaller than she imagined. He looked exhausted. "My son," he said quietly, "has been arrested." Emily remained still. Federal charges. Drug distribution tied to a larger investigation. "He's innocent. I know he is." Silence thickened. "I've heard you're one of the best defense attorneys in the state now. I need help." The irony hung between them like a blade. The man who never questioned her father's innocence was now begging someone to believe in his own son. Emily felt 18 years collapse into a single heartbeat. Emily accepted the case. Not immediately, not eagerly. She waited 3 days before calling back, long enough for desperation to grow. When she finally stepped into the detention center to meet Jason Whitaker, she expected arrogance. Instead, she found a terrified 21-year-old shaking behind steel bars. "I didn't do it," he said before she spoke. The words hit her like an echo from another lifetime. She studied him carefully. Nervous hands, sleepless eyes, confusion rather than guilt. Just like her father. For a moment, revenge tasted bitter. The evidence against Jason was overwhelming. Recorded transactions, digital transfers, witness statements linking him to a distribution ring. Too perfect. Emily felt a cold familiarity. She began digging. Late nights returned. Coffee replaced sleep. Files stacked like walls around her. Patterns emerged. Accounts rerouted through shell companies. A corporate investigation buried years ago. Halbrook Construction. Her breath caught. The same company that framed her father had evolved into a massive logistics empire now under federal scrutiny for laundering money through younger intermediaries, disposable faces like Jason Whitaker. History wasn't repeating. It was continuing. Emily faced a choice. Expose everything and destroy the corporation, clearing both men, or manipulate the truth just enough to free her father while letting Whitaker live with uncertainty. Revenge whispered constantly, "Make him feel it." She imagined refusing the case, watching Whitaker beg, watching him lose his son the way she lost her father. Justice and vengeance blurred until she could barely separate them. One night, visiting her father again, she finally confessed. "I can ruin him," she said softly. Daniel Carter listened quietly. After a long silence, he asked, "Would that bring your mother back?" Her throat tightened. "No." "Would it give you peace?" She didn't answer. He smiled sadly. "Then don't become the thing that hurt us." The trial began months later. Emily dismantled the prosecution methodically, proving data manipulation, coerced testimonies, financial tampering spanning decades. The courtroom watched as a corporate conspiracy unfolded, implicating executives who had escaped scrutiny for years. Judge Whitaker sat frozen as realization slowly broke him. He had sentenced an innocent man, not by malice, but by certainty. And certainty, Emily understood now, could be just as cruel. The verdict came after 3 tense days. Jason Whitaker, not guilty. Gasps filled the courtroom. Moments later, Emily presented newly uncovered evidence reopening Daniel Carter's conviction. The prosecution collapsed under scrutiny. The judge's voice trembled as he read the decision. Daniel Carter, this court vacates your conviction effective immediately. 18 years erased in a sentence that arrived far too late. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Whitaker approached her quietly. I was wrong. I trusted evidence without questioning who controlled it. His eyes carried genuine remorse. I can never give you those years back. Emily looked at him for a long time. She realized revenge had already happened, not through destruction, but through understanding. He now lived with the same unbearable knowledge she had carried since childhood: helplessness. Her father walked out of prison into sunlight that felt unfamiliar. They stood together silently. No anger? He asked gently. Emily thought about the years she had spent feeding pain, sharpening it into purpose. It almost destroyed me, she admitted. He nodded. That's what revenge does. Weeks later, corporate executives were indicted. Careers ended. Fortunes collapsed. Justice arrived slowly, imperfect but real. Emily visited the courtroom one last time after hours. Empty benches, silent walls. She touched the defense table where she once sat as a child. She realized she hadn't waited 18 years to destroy someone. She had waited to understand what justice truly meant. Ending. Revenge had promised her fire, but justice gave her something heavier: mercy. And as Emily Carter walked out of the courthouse into the fading light, she finally understood. The greatest punishment wasn't making someone suffer. It was making them live long enough to understand the pain they once ignored.